So, do you know who it's not been a good week for? His name is Johnson, and his middle name is Piffle, and his first name is Boris. Do you guess it's our Prime Minister Boris Johnson? So, Boris Johnson has had a rough week with multiple right wing tabloids going after him. You know, he's got the allegations, but I think these are confirmed now that a Tory donor paid for his Downing Street flat renovations, and he's apparently paid the money back. Boris Johnson apparently said, he would let COVID rip, and he had regrets about the first lockdown. He's also under investigation from the Electoral Commission over the alleged payments, and he's also setting up a new ethics advisor that can't actually investigate things without his permission. Very strange. So he's not had a good week, let's put it that way. Also, he doesn't know who the Downing Street leaker is. That's also another one. So Boris Johnson's claim to have paid for the lavish makeover of his Downing Street flat faced fresh scrutiny after it was confirmed Tory HQ paid the £58,000 bill 9 months ago. So according to the Daily Mail, that's been confirmed. Also, the fact that he spent 58 grand on renovating a flat when that's half the cost of a flat in certain areas. I mean, it's ridiculous. Conservative chiefs are understood to have secretly approved the payment to the Cabinet Office in July, so I wonder how legal the payment was, and I also wonder who else was involved in this. Who else has Johnson dragged into this? The payment confirmed to the Mail yesterday by Cabinet Office sources undermines the Prime Minister's insistence that he paid the bill himself. And the question is, who are these people? Who are these sources? Who is leaking all this information? That's the key question. Downing Street has refused to deny reports that Mr Johnson secured a loan from the Tory donor, believed to be financier Lord Brownlow, to pay for the decor. And another question is, what did Lord Brownlow want in return for this? Because he bought a lot of influence, because he paid £58,000 to have Boris Johnson's flat renovated. It's a lot of money. One source said further details were likely to be revealed in an updated register of ministerial interest, which could be released as early as this week. Can't wait to see that. But Johnson said Johnson first asked to appoint a new advisor on ministerial standards, a post that has been vacant since Sir Alex Allan resigned in November in protest at the Prime Minister's refusal to sack Priti Patel over bullying allegations. Remember that he said Priti Patel had actually committed bullying, and then Boris Johnson was like, nah, she didn't though, did she? And then he resigned over it. Sir Alex Allan resigned. The appointment was due to be announced last week, but the preferred candidate is said to be wobbling about whether to accept the post because they're going to have no real power. This will be a symbolic position. The only reason you'd accept this position is for a paycheck. Cabinet Secretary Simon Case confirmed Mr Johnson had wanted to set up a charitable trust more than 12 months ago to pay for the flat's refit. So instead of that money going to an actual charity for people in need, he wanted to set up a trust to do up his flat, which would create give more opportunities for Tory donors to get influence with Boris Johnson. But he said it was now clear that it would be illegal for the charitable trust to pay for the upkeep of private quarters, not to mention the ethical problems with that. He refused to say whether political donations had been accepted to help the project. It's either he doesn't know he funded it, or he does know and he doesn't want to incriminate Boris Johnson. Mr Johnson also ducked the questions yesterday, telling reporters if there's anything to be said about that, any declarations to be made, that will of course be made in due time. The idiot could have got multiple donations under £7,500 and there'd be nothing to declare. But he didn't. And also he spent £58,000 on these renovations. Like, bruv, you were ripped off, you should get a refund. Like, what is this? What kind of chairs are these? It's embarrassing, honestly. The Cabinet Office informed Parliament on Friday that the Prime Minister has now paid the bill for his renovation. So Boris Johnson has covered it, but it's been confirmed that Boris Johnson took some sort of donation / or loan to pay for this. It's pretty embarrassing that he would have to beg donors to pay for this stuff, especially since he's wealthy. He's very wealthy. A senior Tory told the Mail he has been forced to take out a loan to settle the bill. Mr Johnson's sister Rachel, defended him, saying that the overhaul of the light and airy flat shared by the Prime Minister and his fiancée Carrie Symonds. They have a baby about to turn 1, and maybe it needed some spiffing up. Not £58,000 though, Rachel. It doesn't cost £58,000 to do up a flat, does it? Does it, Rachel? Honestly. The latest disclosure added another layer to the labyrinthine money trail used to meet the cost of the refurbishment. It is thought that the Cabinet Office, which oversees building work in Downing Street, forwarded the money from Tory HQ to contractors, including upmarket designer Lulu Light, which apparently her services are very expensive. Can't see why. That flat looks ugly as hell. But yeah, borrowed 58 grand for that. Someone should get a refund, honestly. The newspaper revealed last month that Lord Brownlow paid the Tory party £58,000 as a donation to cover the sum of money it had paid for the refit. So it looks like Tory HQ paid for it, and it was the funds were covered by Lord Barlow. If, as Downing Street now says, Mr. Johnson has paid the bill, that would appear to be two possible. There would be two possible ways of doing so. Either Lord Brownlow's donation to Tory HQ has been turned into a loan, or Mr. Johnson reimbursed the £58,000 two-party funds to cover the payment directly. So either he paid back the money directly, or he has taken out a 58 grand loan to pay back the money. If, as some insiders are speculating, Lord Brownlow's donation has become a loan to Mr. Johnson, the party will face calls to reveal who authorised this, so can't wait to see that. Critics may argue that in such hypothetical circumstances, the loan is tantamount to being a Tory donation in a different guise. The Electoral Commission, they are investigating this. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. That's about Boris Johnson's bad week getting worse. When the Mail first revealed the scandal, Mr. Johnson's then press secretary, Allegra Stratton, said the Conservative Party funds are not being used to pay for any refurbishment. So that's technically true, because it wasn't Conservative Party funds, it was from a donation. So, I think that's technically true anyways. Lord Brownlow has not responded to a request for statement, so that's interesting. Surely he'd want to get his side heard. I think Boris Johnson's biggest problem right now, and I don't mean this in a misogynistic way, I think is his fiancée, because he apparently stopped a leak inquiry because it would have pinned the blame. It could have potentially pinned the blame on someone called Henry Newman, who was a good friend of Carrie Symonds. And he spent a lot of money on this refurbishment, apparently because his fiancée Carrie Symonds wanted the flat to be refurbed because they probably didn't like the decorations that Theresa May had put in. So this lady is causing him a lot of problems. And we go on to Boris Johnson's bad week, which is that Boris Johnson allegedly told aides in Downing Street that he would rather let coronavirus rip than impose a second lockdown because of the economic harm further restrictions would cause. He's also alleged to have said he would let the bodies pile high in their thousands rather than doing a third lockdown, which he eventually had to do anyways. The Prime Minister is said to have argued in September that there was no evidence that lockdowns worked and described them as mad during an intense debate within government. We do know that lockdowns work, so Boris Johnson lying to his aides there. The Times has also been told that he repeatedly would rather let it rip, that's not a Beyblade reference, during this period than implement another lockdown because the restrictions that would cause businesses to close, Tory donors to lose money, oh wait, he didn't actually say that, and people to lose their jobs. Well, because by delaying the lockdown, all you did was make things worse. So, sick one, Bojo. He's also said to have expressed anger and regret about the first lockdown, comparing himself to the mayor in the film Jaws, which is something that he's done a lot, who kept the beaches open despite the risk of shark attacks. Johnson has, in the past, suggested that the mayor was the real hero of the film for resisting political pressure, which does show you that it's very likely that Boris Johnson did argue against the lockdowns, because we know he delayed the lockdowns. We know that he let the bodies pile high in their thousands until he actually did something. A spokesperson for Downing Street said these are gross distortions of his position. Throughout the pandemic, we've done... I'm not going to read that because it's a blatant lie. You can read that last bit. That's a blatant lie. I'm not going to do it. You got even the Evening Standard reporting on this story as well. So you got the Mail, the Telegraph, and the Evening Standard all going after Boris Johnson. I had a picture of the all the frontline news articles that were going after Johnson, but for some reason the BBC got rid of the actual pictures, so thanks BBC. The Electoral Commission, this is another bit of Boris Johnson's bad week, which is that the Electoral Commission has launched a formal inquiry into the funding of Boris Johnson's Downing Street flat refurbishments. The watchdog has been in contact with the Conservative Party since March over the works the Prime Minister has carried out at Number 11, but is now announced that it's satisfied that there are reasonable grounds to suspect that an offence or offences may have occurred. So I don't know what the punishments will be. The Electoral Commission doesn't have a lot of teeth. It could be just fines, but if they do find him guilty of breaking the rules, then at least that's something more the Labour Party can run on. Mr. Johnson told MPs he paid for the revamp personally, which we know that he covered the costs after getting out a loan, but after borrowing the money, but we know that he didn't actually cover the initial costs. The Prime Minister has been under growing pressure to declare how the work was paid for after his former advisor Cummings claimed Johnson had planned for party donors to secretly pay, which it looks like Boris Johnson's plan could have worked, but someone had leaked the information about it. Speaking at PMQs on Wednesday, Keir Starmer pushed the Prime Minister to explain who paid for the initial invoice for renovations, giving him multiple choice answers between the taxpayer, the Conservative Party, a private donor, or Johnson himself. Starmer accused the government of being mired in sleaze, cronyism and scandal, but Boris Johnson said the answer is, I have covered the costs, I conformed in full with the code of conduct, and officials have kept advising me through this whole thing, but we know that the senior civil servant Simon Case was not involved in this. So which officials have been advising you? He says, but I think it's absolutely bizarre that he's focusing on this issue when what people want to know is what plans the government might have on improving the life of people in this country. Well, hopefully that's not allowing another wave of COVID. And I think what Starmer has to do is he has to make the point that why is this such a scandal? He has to explain to people why is this such a scandal when certain donors have been getting contracts instead of actual companies that have expertise in PPE and whatever else the country needed at the time. So certain donors got those contracts, and what Starmer has to do is make people understand why this is a scandal, because it's not enough just to say that he had a Tory party donor fund his flat refurbishment. He has to do more than that. He has to put the pieces in place so people can put it together, similar to how the prosecution lays out the case in front of the jury. That's what he has to do to make people fully understand why this is an issue. But anyways, that caps off Boris Johnson's bad week. So it's confirmed that a Tory party donor paid for the initial reconstruction or refurbishment of the flat that Boris Johnson lives in, number 11. Boris Johnson allegedly said, let it rip, when he was talking about letting COVID rip through the country. He also said, let the bodies pile high in their thousands, allegedly. And he's under investigation from the Electoral Commission over the donations, and he's facing a slew of criticism from right-wing press, the Telegraph and the Mail. So that's very interesting because these are papers that traditionally back Conservative Party leaders, so I wonder why they've turned on him. It's very interesting. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Oh, sorry, I missed one bit out, which is that... Well, that's my bad. That the new rules for the independent ethics advisor can only suggest inquiries, but will still need the Prime Minister's approval. Advise on sanctions, but up to the Prime Minister to enforce, and sit for 5 years. The Prime Minister remains the ultimate arbiter of ministerial code. So the Prime Minister has not yet spoken to the Electoral Commission, and this headline here, which is Boris Johnson will himself judge if he broke the rules over flat refurbishment, is pretty accurate. So what he's done is he's getting a new independent ethics advisor who has no teeth and can do absolutely nothing, and will most likely be a yes man who will authorise anything that Boris Johnson wants to do. So Boris Johnson can say, oh, the independent ethics advisor said everything's above board, when you handpicked the ethics advisor. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.